Welcome back to Ariadne's Quotes of Wisdom, episode number 9. I made it 3 times in a row. I promised. Today's quote is from the Rolling Stones. It is from one of their songs, and it is, "You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need." This is a song that I used to sing to my child when they were young. Drove them crazy. You can't always get what you want. So with this one, it's fairly simplistic and pretty straightforward. However, it is something that I think a lot of people really struggle with. And I think the part especially about, and if you try sometimes, you just might find. And I think the try part is the key there, that we need to try to think about when we don't get what we want, that we need to find where it is that we got what we needed. And that's the key. That's the part that I think we all struggle with, because if you really think back on your life and you think about all the things that you asked for or that you wished for, where you didn't get what you wanted, you didn't have your life go according to your plan, according to what you were wishing for, what you wanted, where you thought your life would be. And if you think about those times and you analyze them and you think about dissecting where it deviated from what it was that you wanted and where you ended up, what it was that you actually needed instead of what you wanted, and how it led you to where you are now. What was it that you actually needed? And it might have been something that you were very unhappy with at that moment. And it might have been something that was very hard. It might have been a very hard struggle. But sometimes the hardest paths lead us to the best destinations. I've experienced this many, many times in my life. And if you ask anybody, I really believe that if you ask anybody in this world to look back at where their lives were 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and what their vision was for 1 year from then, 5 years from then, 10 years from then, it isn't anywhere what they thought that it would be. And maybe some parts are, but I think in general, there are definitely some larger portions, definitely some smaller portions, but even some larger portions that did not go according to plan. And I think there's a really big lesson in that. I think that we all need to stop trying to over-control things. I think we need to start going with the flow, allowing our intuition sometimes to just take over, stop trying to grip so tightly on trying to force what it is that we want, what it is that, having our way, and really pushing something that just keeps pushing against us. If there is some kind of path that we are trying to take and there are obstacles that are just really screaming out that this is not the way, that it's just really screaming to you that this is not what you should be doing. I really think that we all need to start listening to that a little bit more. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't fight for something. There are definitely things that need to be fought for, but I really think that there are things that in general we need to flow with our path a little bit more. And if we just kind of tune in a little bit more to going where things lead us, listening to our inner voice a little bit more, going with our passions in life a little bit more, going with where obviously following we do need things too. We can't always just follow our passions, but we also need to make sure that we are not always going so much against the grain and trying so much to force our own will and our own desires so much that it's preventing us from seeing some other path that might be right there before us that we are closing our eyes off to. We need to make sure that we are always staying aware of some of the opportunities that are around us that we may be closing off to, because we're trying so hard to just go after these blinders, like a horse in a race, that we just have our eyes so focused on, this is what I want, this is what I'm so dead set on, that we're missing so many other things that are being presented to us at that time. And sometimes if we're not listening, that's when the hardships come in, and that's when, we are redirected and our path is redirected, because that's not where our destiny really truly is. And I really think that brings us to, the predeterminism and fate, and that could be a huge rabbit hole to go down. And, how much control do we really have over our lives and our choices, and the butterfly effect, and predeterminism, and how much are our lives really mapped out for us already versus how much do our own daily choices actually affect things, or are our specific destinations already really predetermined, and every choice that we're making are actually really truly somehow leading us there. And when we're not actually, when our choices don't lead us to where we're supposed to go, that somehow we're constantly redirected, so that if we're not in the flow of things, those obstacles that we're hitting are purposely bumping us back to where we're supposed to actually go. And that's a whole huge discussion that we could really kind of open up a huge can of worms, and there's a lot of different thoughts on that. Sometimes it's a religious discussion, sometimes it's just a philosophical discussion. It depends on your personal belief system, but it all kind of depends on also too, sometimes your life experiences, and sometimes your thought patterns change. I know that my philosophies and beliefs have kind of changed and shifted over time too, and sometimes that's also the sign of being open-minded as well, and not always sticking to one specific set of beliefs from the time that you're very young, and having this major dogma, because that's just being open to more growth. And I think that's very important. And sometimes the other side of the coin too is about getting what you want versus what you need, is sometimes you need to be careful what you wish for too. Because think about sometimes like celebrities and people who, regular common people admire and think, oh, they have it all. But think about how many celebrities just throw their lives away and end up in poverty anyway, despite, having so much financial security and having money thrown at them and having, so much at their disposal, and so many of them throwing their lives away to substance abuse and, multiple marriages and divorces. And are they really happy? So many people think that, oh, if I just had money, if I just had fame, if I just had, the love of my life. But look at some of these celebrities' lives. I mean, they're not necessarily happy. If I had beauty, if I had popularity, some of these celebrities have all of that, and yet somehow they're still not happy. I know just recently, some things that I wished for when I was younger and never thought that I could ever have. I'm starting to get and see the other flip side of the coin. And I'm not saying that there aren't good positive sides to it, but there's also some negative sides that I never would have thought either. So it was kind of a careful what I wish for, because there are some downsides to it as well that I didn't realize until I got there. Grass is always greener, and sometimes too, but the grass is always greener, but the cows always go to the greener pasture, and then that's what they eat. There's a lot of, when there's positives, there's also negatives. Again, I've talked a lot about the polar opposites, the extremes, the yin and the yang. So I really think that, you always need to take all those things into consideration, and I think the main lesson in that is we all need to relax a little bit more. Let go of the control. And this is coming from somebody who has been a control freak over a lot of things in my life. And my life certainly did not turn out where I would have pictured it, when I was 18, when I was 10, when I was 25. Where I'm at now is not anywhere where I would have pictured, and my life did not go anywhere according to where I would have thought. And now I'm in a much better place than I was, but some of the events that occurred in my life were nowhere near what I would have pictured. Some good, some bad. So I think we just need to relax and not try to over control. Just really try and make better choices in life. I think just the better choices rather than controlling and forcing situations and trying to will our will, forcing our will on ourselves, on our lives, on our path, on other people, I think is one of the big lessons in this. And you're not always going to get what you want. You're definitely not always going to get what you want. And you often get what you need. And being okay with that is one of the bigger keys to happiness. And being okay with those harder times and what they will actually lead to. And in the moment of harder times, when you're in the thick of things not being so great, relaxing into the fact that those hard times might be leading you to better times, and that you need to trust the process. I know I use a lot of cliches, but some of them are really true, and some of them very much are not, but a lot of them kind of go hand in hand. And if you just kind of trust the process, that those hard times might be leading you to better times and exactly to where you might be going and where you need to be in life, and that there are lessons in everything. And if it's not exactly where you want to be at that moment, that it's leading you and giving you the experience for what you need, and it's giving you the tools for the better times and things that are going to be coming up in your future. So just relax and let your life be, and things will be so much better when you do that. Have a wonderful day. Come back and see me on the next time.